Hello and welcome to the live stream. I hope you guys are ready to build a world because that is the intention today. So I am busy with the layouts of world building blueprints, and I have the paperback layouts done, and I've got the um, color layouts done, and I thought it would be fun to actually use them, and the worksheets, which are all done because of course that's all part of the initial writing, to actually build a D&D world, especially since I am thinking about running a campaign for my regular Tuesday game group, um, to run some D&D. So I haven't run D&D in ages. So, I thought it might be time to return to it. Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Gary? Good to see you guys. Okay. So the base principle. So let me start with sharing the book. I hope you guys can see at least relatively well. um this, I don't know why this. Oh, goodness. Okay. So, this is the start of the book, and we don't really need to go through what makes this book different or how to use this book, since those are things I know. The first thing that we need to understand is our audience. Okay, so in this case, my audience is very, very simple. My audience is my players, so that'll be easy to fill in. And that takes us to our first worksheet, the kind of players that I run for. I'm just going to say here that media my audience enjoys all things fantasy. They like a pace of about a 7. Their danger scale is around a 5. World depth, they're quite fans of deep, so let's say a 7. Themes is an interesting question. It's just like if there are things that these people don't enjoy be playing through and so on. My regular group are quite a bunch. They're quite easy with the stuff, so none. I'm just gonna leave that at none. All right, then we come to an interesting part of the book. So this is where we start understanding our story. Yeah. And we want to talk about the touchstone of the story and the conflict and the characters. Okay. So the touchstone of the story, or the touchstone of the campaign in this case, is basically like if you take Game of Thrones, it's the War of the Roses meets zombie apocalypse. Or if you take Mistborn, it's My Fair Lady meets a bank heist. If you take The Lion King, it's Hamlet, except happy ending. So I was thinking about the game that I want to run is one where it makes sense for there to be plenty dungeons crawling around the world. In order to do that, I figured an apocalyptic world, a post-apocalypse world would be ideal. So there used to be like a high-level civilization, and now that civilization has gone the way of the dodo, leaving behind these like ruins dotting the landscape. Okay, cool. So that's kind of the concept I'm going for, is post-apocalypse. Then I got to thinking, and I have done a little bit of thinking of it around it over the course of this week, that what I really want to do is I want an apocalypse where people didn't do this to themselves, first of all, so it wasn't like an internal war. I don't want an environmental disaster, and I don't want what's the other typical one? Oh, they delved too deep. They went too deep into science, and they did the wrong thing, and they, released the Balrog and so on. So I didn't want any of those. So I thought, okay, what I would like, what does that leave then? It leaves alien invasion. Okay. But now I don't want the players to be fighting an alien invader. So why would the aliens have essentially moved on? And that got me thinking about Stargate Atlantis and the Wraith. So the Wraith in Stargate Atlantis came raiding, right? And they would kill the people on a planet, and then you would have this like situation where they would keep technology low and all the rest of that. So I thought like that would be really interesting. What if there was a race or a monster or something that acted like the Wraith, but they'd been like ignoring this world that our events take place on for like 1,000 years or so. So the people got like high technology, and they've developed magic, and they figured stuff out, and they had these cities and everything else. And then the dragons, which is what I decided to do, I decided to make it dragons. The dragons came back, and they were like, no, none of this. So they went on like a major war, and they, basically bombed the world back into the Stone Age. And now people are kind of, that was about 300 years ago, and now people are kind of rebuilding their world. So the touchstone for my campaign world, I think, will be Stargate Atlantis, but dragons instead of Wraith. Hello, Elizabeth. It is good to see you. And yeah, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying them. The Kickstarter, by the way, is still active. If anybody wants to, I mean, it's fully funded and everything, but you can still late pledge to get the book. Okay, so if I toddle back to over here, we've got a touchstone, and we say this is going to be a Stargate Atlantis post-apoc world, but dragons as Wraith. Okay. So the ongoing conflict is going to be basically just D&D session. And we'll get to more details later. And we're gonna skip the characters for now because they're not that important to me right this moment. Okay. So that all being the case, let me just get back to my StreamYard over here. Okay. So we have so then we've got some big picture details like environmental, magic technology, and so on. So let's do those. Environment, we're looking at a D&D world. Kind of feudal, I would say, because it's post-apocalyptic. Feudal post-apoc. What do you guys think? What else would describe a D&D world? I think that's enough for now. Magic and technology. Okay, so our magic is D&D 5th edition, and our technology level, I'm thinking like Europe. The tech might be really actually quite low because they really got hammered by the dragons. So I'll put the tech around like early Iron Age. So people make up for a lot with magic, but all right. Cultures. Okay, so here I've also given some pre-thought to this. So I'm not going to worry too much about a huge amount of culture, but in the town where I'm going to start this off, there's going to be the Adventurer Guild. I'll explain now how that works and why that's there. Then there's going to be the Dragon Worshipper cult. And there might be a couple of others. Okay, so those cultures are kind of important to me because they're going to be part of it. Yeah, so Necromancer, JM, it'll be kind of a magocracy, but not always. It'll be, in some cases it might be a priest or whatever. So each town, I think, will have its own kind of government. The town where we're starting off will probably start off as a necromancy town. Why D&D world instead of a fantasy world? So the reason why I'm using this as an example today is just because it's easier than going into like a whole fresh world of building all the fantasy elements. I'm looking at running a campaign. So I figured it might be fun to kind of build the world live and flowing, at least the early parts of it. Okay, so I think that is enough for our general, look at these things. Let's plot beats. I'm not going to worry too much about characters and plot beats right now. Eventually I'll get to building the actual campaign out. To start with, I'm just building the world. If this stream is fun and you guys enjoy it, then we can do another one where we build out the actual campaign. Right now, I'm just slapping together the world. Okay, so the world scope. Okay, so what I'm going to do with the world scope is I'm going to say that at the beginning, so I'm just going to skip past these guys. At the beginning, we are going to have, we're going to start in a town where people go to learn to be adventurers. Because here's what I'm planning on doing with this world, right? In essence, people know that these ruins have got a lot of wealth in them. They've got magic in them. They've got gear in them. They've got old knowledge in them, and so on. So there are people who train and who go into these ruins to go find things and recover things. And that's where your adventurer class comes from. But now, obviously, this is dangerous, but it is made safer by joining an adventurer guild, proving yourself worthy, and then snapping in and actually becoming an adventurer and going on quests and so on to try and recover some of this lost knowledge that came with a post-apocalyptic world. Okay, so that's kind of my intent. That's why there's like an adventurer guild and all of that kind of thing. Sid, if I ran open campaigns, I would absolutely invite you. Okay, so add fantasy, we're not going to worry too much about because there is a whole chunk in here about fancy fantasy stuff that we don't need. But we do need a little bit over here in how is magic not manipulated. Where is it now? Here. Artifacts. Yes, we need some artifacts. And we need to discuss how people become mages. So let's slide past all of these. We're not too fast. And get to artifacts. Yes, plenty. Obviously, I need to go and put in much more detail here, but anyone can become a mage. You need a teacher. Are there any dangers to learning fantasy? No, but if you get too high level, you might attract a dragon's attention. Yes, mages are often tested. No, no one is willing to risk that. Okay, because we still have our dragons who are kind of suppressing both technology and magic. All right, cool. Geographic features, we don't need to stress too much about that. D&D will take care of most of it. Yes, we have fantastical locations. So if we look at fantastical locations, I'm going to put a note here for myself and say plenty the post-apoc ruins. And I know I have one specifically, the beginner ruins near the town, dungeon used to test new joiners to the adventurer guild. Okay. I should probably put that in plot purpose rather than description. I will get to the details of how it works later. Okay. We don't need to worry about fantastical fauna and flora. D&D will take care of that for us. The only thing that I do want to make a note of is in the fantastical fauna and flora, I do want to, at the right at the end, make a note over here. Dragons, mythic, used to suppress tech and magic, very much the enemy. Okay. Cool. So I hope all that makes sense. Okay. So let's quickly recap where we are. By the way, I love this picture. This is the lightning bird of Africa as interpreted by one of my artists, or the thunderbird, it's also sometimes called. Okay. We are building a D&D world. The premise of the world is that it is a post-apocalyptic world, and it is based around Stargate Atlantis, but dragons. So instead of Wraith, we have dragons who suppress worlds that they own. And for about 1,000 years, they ignored the world that we're building right now. And then 300 years ago, they came with a vengeance, and they were like, no. All this tech and magic stuff is just not going to do. And they, basically bombed, fire breathed, etc., the world back into like the Iron Age. And they started severely depressing magic and severely depressing technology and so on. So now people have, they've started rebuilding little communities that are little feudal communities. And they're very, very careful to not attract the dragon's attention, right? Because the dragons are still on the world and so on. But, the dragons are kind of leaving them alone as long as they don't, get too high level and so on, kind of like the Wraith approach. And the ruins of the previous civilization form the core of our dungeons for this world. And people know that the dungeons have got a lot of treasure in them. They know that dungeons have got a lot of resources. So there are adventurer guilds that help people like train and try out and work on getting into these dungeons and getting resources out. Okay, so let me zoom in. Is that more readable? I hope so. And I will try and zoom in here as well on this. I should be able to zoom in quite a bit. All right, so that's where we are in building this world. I did, by the way, let me just copy the link. So I did create that. All right, cool. So we're not going to worry about that. We're through all that. We're good. Okay, sapient species, we're all D&Ding. The natural world. So Anna, I would say that the dragons are all kind of like the ancient, they're big dragons. We're looking at like giant dragons that can travel between worlds and use magic and breathe fire and so on. So they're bananas. Okay. So the natural world, the map. I don't know that I'm going to draw a map right now because I normally use Incarnate for that. But what I will do is I will look at, this is a map from my world. I will look at the basic layout. Is there a large scale feature? So the biggest large scale feature is obviously that the fact that there are ruins dot the landscape, towns form close to ruins, much resources. Okay. Cool. That's a very interesting thought, Sid. I'm going to make a note of that. Thought. Vines to wrap the dungeon and absorb excess magic to help protect against dragon incursions. Okay. Cool. This, by the way, I thought was a great image that just shows you like what kind of biome pyramids. But I'm not going to worry too much about biomes right this moment. I don't need to go into that amount of detail at the beginning. Where I want to get to with this puppy is I think cultures. But I think I'm going to have to switch to the paperback because I have not finished the layout that I need for this. So we are on the paperback. Because what I'm looking for is actually, it is here. It is here, the model. All right. So I want to build a culture. And I'm going to switch to a single page view and really zoom in on this framework. So the culture that I'm going to build is for the town where I'm starting this off, which is kind of famous as like the adventurer headquarters. And I want to build specifically the adventure culture. But what I want to do is I want to make it quick and dirty build of the culture rather than going into detail, because where I want to get to is the religion part of this. So let me skim through these worksheets real fast and get to the culture. Culture. I'm not going to do all of everything in the culture because that's way too much. Instead, I am just going to go to my quick and dirty culture build. The book has a lot of detail, and then it's got a quick and dirty. So I can guess like a lot of people are going to go for the quick and dirty culture builds. I would in fact advise that you only do the in-depth culture build if it's a really important culture that needs all the detail. Otherwise you just go adventurers region TBD inspiration dangerous jobs. All right, their core ideology. They are more egalitarian. They are more individualist. They're more free. And they're more progressive, which means they're more open to change because you have to. Yeah, Rome was absolutely not built in a day, So this is the beginning. It's all very, very quick and dirty at the moment. So our cultural mores and so on, we're gonna skip those for now. Although I see, there's gonna be like taboos around dragons, taboos around dragons. Symbol. They're gonna need a symbol, obviously. They're gonna need terms. What are they gonna call an adventure? Because they're probably not gonna call it an adventurer. They're gonna call them. They're going to go delving for lost knowledge, something around lost knowledge. So maybe like Arcana divers. I'll see. I'll come back to that. Kinship. None. Wait, adoptive. They have adoptive, and they have an adoptive kinship structure, and your adoptive parent is called your I don't want to just call it parent. I'm going to put it in stars and say I've got to find a word for it. Hierarchy, mostly level determined. Governance survivor. I could see shape-shifting dragons, Sid. Sid says, are they shape-shifting dragons? I could absolutely see that. You should have digging in the ruins. Yes. Yes. Their art is mostly... Oh, I like them having graffiti. Graffiti in the dungeons. That's like a thing that they do. It's like leave the graffiti art where they've defeated a boss or whatever. So you've got like places where, Grumsh was here is like in the dungeons. Okay, so that's my basic adventurer guild, and that works. Now, I'm gonna need a religion as well, but first, let's just go to the religion. We've got to talk about the religion a little bit. So past culture, lots of past culture. There's so much culture building in this book. But it is the biggest part of world building. I really like this image as well. I need to get to, no, not material conditions. We don't care about that right now. We need to get to identity, which is past economics even, actually. Sacred spaces, here we go. So in religion, one of the first things that we ask is, what is our metaphysical reality? What is the actual truth? And I think in this world, we are looking for metaphysical reality. There we go. I think in this world, we obviously have some divine entities, but I would say that after the apocalypse, the worship of the gods has faded. So let's say that the metaphysical reality is that the dragons killed the gods. Okay. Or at least that is what is believed. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Then our divine focus is, there's two types. There's either worship of the dragons by who everyone else calls quisling worship. And then there is worship of local spirits, I think, including like non-draconic lizards, etc. But it creates a situation where you can have an animistic religion, you can have shamanism, you can have priests, you can have all kinds of setups, right? So you've either got kind of this dragon-born church, or you have like little like underground local religions. Okay, so each town would have its kind of local religions. And magic, of course, is as per DnD. And that over here gives me a very interesting plot setup, because if the adventurer town has a dragonborn church and a local priest who worships some kind of spirit, and that gives me these two are in conflict. And that gives me a really, really good, like, piece of conflict that I can have in the town itself. And that is a great idea, Gary. I am going to note that down. Could be that the gods were imprisoned by the dragons rather than killed. Eventual campaign idea. I like that. Okay, so that being the case, let's toddle along through all of this. Let's go back to our 2-page view. I thought that was cute for taboos. And oh no, I need to be in paperbacks. I want to get to the economy. So our economy is an interesting setup. Question is, do we want let's zoom in on this little onion layer over here. Okay. Yeah. So for our economy, these people obviously make some stuff, and they have craftsmen. They have mages, although they can't get too high level because dragons. Or they can't cast high level spells. Okay, so that's our mechanic. So if these ruins have these vines that absorb excess magic, you can cast high level magic, but only when you're protected by these vines, which would make these vines super freaking valuable. But they only grow around the dungeons. Okay, so the vines are one of the reasons why people settle around these dungeons. Okay, because the vines protect you and let you cast your uber high level magic, which lets you do things for people and create things and so on. So that is definitely a thing that people use. So that's a very valuable resource within the world, is these vines. Okay, so let's go to we need to make some fauna. I should have put in my Word document, I've got like headers down here at the side. And of course, in the Google Docs, it doesn't, but the Google Docs share is easier. So here we are. Okay, so we want some fantastical fauna and flora. Vines. Magic absorbing vines. I'll come up with a better name later. Type is, it is a plant. A plant which grows around dungeons and absorbs magic. Around the ruins of the old cities. Mythic. Part of the old world. Needs loads of magic. Protects and allows mages to cast high level spells. Creates the town locations. Okay. So I hope all of this is yeah. So extracting and cutting the vines is almost impossible, I'd say. Like, because you need to have the vines growing around the dungeons, right? So the vines need the magic of the old city, of the magic of the old city to grow, and that's kind of where they're at. Um, so and cutting them risks, mutations and like dragon shift sickness. Yeah. So there's all kinds of like risks to opening them. So I like that. I think that makes the vines a very good reason for why towns exist. And we then and especially towns that create magical items, because that requires mages and whatever, which means that people um need the vines to cast spells. Okay, so I'm liking that. I'm thinking we've got a reasonable setup here. We have our adventurer guild. We know we have the Dragonborn church in the little town. Yeah. And maybe the vine fruits can be made into kind of like a protective potion. Oh, that is nice. That is nice. I like that. The vines can be made into a protective a protective potion that you can drink, which will kind of hide you from the dragons for a while. I like that. Where are our potions? Potions, magic item, consumable magic item. Vine potion. Hides a caster from the dragons for 1 day. How is it made? From the fruits of the vine. Okay, that is nice. I like that. We can go back to that page. Over here. It's that one. Okay, so that then allows people to cast, but they need the potion. Okay, nice. Almost impossible, punishable by death to anyone who tries. Yes, it does sound like a plot line. The biggest thing you have to do when you're building a role-playing world, whether that's D&D or anything else, right, is you have to build in plot hooks. Those plot hooks are what's going to make your world playable afterwards. So things like this assassin's vine, the gods being imprisoned, the finding a way to get the vines to replicate, dealing with the dragons maybe eventually. All of these things are potential plot hooks that I can kind of put on the table in front of my players and be like, does this sound interesting to you? No? Okay. How about this? Does this sound interesting to you? And then when they pull on that plot hook, when they start like nibbling and going like, okay, we're interested in exploring that, then I will take that idea, that hook, and I'll build a full campaign out of it, right? With like steps they need to take and challenges to overcome and, plot beats and all the rest of that. But I'll start by just going like, here's a hook and here's a hook. And how about this hook? What do you feel about that? And the only thing I'll ask of my players is that they have to start by wanting to become part of the Adventurers Guild, because that gives me the basis for getting them into the world. And then once they're in the world, we'll explore as it goes. That's generally the way I run. At the moment, we're playing Cyberpunk, and and I said to them, okay, you all have to own. You have to jointly own this tavern in Cyberpunk. And the whole game is basically the tavern gets hit by surprise inspection, says, gangers who try and get protection. They have money problems and stuff like that. But yeah, this world, I'm looking for a more D&D flavored world. So there's endless adventures, as you say, Gary, in this setup with the dungeons, but there's additional plot lines as well. That is an interesting thought as well. I am going to make a note that I would like to do something potentially with vine scent. Something to explore. Okay, so we've got our vines, we've got our dungeons. We know why towns form close to ruined locations. I don't worry too much about currency in D&D, because the currency in D&D always defaults to gold, silver, and copper. It is what it is. Because that's what the prices are marked in the freaking player's handbook. So, whatever. Like, it is what it is. I'm not fussed. Because in D&D, money is part of your game balance, like how much money the players have and their kind of lore equivalent items and so on. Their level equivalent gear and all that stuff. So I don't worry about creating currency so much, but I do want to build out the town itself a little bit. So I'm gonna go to the government, and let's go and build out the government of the town just a little bit in the last before we continue on. Hope I didn't lose you guys. Doesn't look like it. So obviously I know the book really well, but the point of the book is to use it like this. It's not to go through the book step by step and fill in every step and stop at every step, right? The point and purpose of the book is to explore, is to use the book when you need it, where you need it, and so on. So we're looking at worksheet 4.0, and we want to look at our kind of government overview. Okay, so let's look for worksheet 4.0. There we go. Yeah, so if you back the Kickstarter, if you're getting the book and all the rest of that, make sure that you don't get like completely hung up on filling in every section and get stuck. That's not the purpose here. The purpose is to like do it as you need it. So I would say that the town is pretty much free, and it maintains its own security. External security is like attacks from outside. So how does it maintain external security? The Adventurer Guild provides irregular troops for defense. There is a party of adventurers who have managed to reach a high enough level that they run the town. I'm not sure I quite like that, but we'll, because we have the Dragonborn Temple. Okay, so they provide irregular troops for defense. Care has to be taken because of the Dragonborn Temple, right? So we've got the dragon worshippers who are close to the town. Okay, so that obviously creates a conflicting situation with the town and the adventurer guild. Okay, so we need to thread that needle. What does the government of the town do in order to keep the Dragonborn Temple from calling down the dragons? They pay tribute. They pay tribute to the Dragonborn Temple to ensure their silence. Okay. Does that make sense? Are you planning to build or consider the shadow government? Yes. So there will absolutely be a black market. And I will absolutely build them as well. But that will be like, that'll have to be a separate live stream. If this one proves popular, I'll do more of them live. Internal security, I would say that this town is very rough and ready. But adventurers can't or are not supposed to attack each other within town limits. If you have a beef with somebody, take it outside. Irregular troops with adventure guild. Lots. Adventure guild is social mobility. Because they have a very high have a very high turnover rate of membership. They don't they draw in from everywhere. They don't have like a requirement. Who controls security and defense? Okay, we'll get back to that because that needs a little bit of thought. Okay. I think we're getting complex here. So I think that's enough for now. My head's starting to get a little flat with thoughts and things and ideas and things that I want to give some thought to and talk over with myself and discuss internally between myself and I, and how I want to set up the flavor of this thing, especially with the government and so on. But yeah, so I think that is enough to get going with. I would probably at this point almost be ready to run a game in this world because putting a dungeon together isn't hard, and I know that I'm going to want a newbie setup with this adventure guild, right? So there'll be like a test you have to run, and that test will be like a dungeon, like a 5 or 6 session dungeon that you go through at level 1, and kind of you have to survive it to prove yourself, kind of thing. And if I set it up like that, then that would give me 5 or 6 sessions to plan out the rest of the town and do all the rest of that stuff, for when the players come out of the dungeon. So I am a big believer in, build the minimum that you need, and then get going with running your story. Because once players start hitting the world, once players are interacting with my world and with these vines and with the dungeon and everything else, then obviously, things will change, and I'll also know like what my players are most interested in, and I'll be able to like work out what I'm going to give them. So yeah, so I mean, I would work on the government, and I'd work on like the setup of the town and so forth and so on. But I would probably draw up a couple of NPCs, build my dungeon, and then say to my players, okay, we're ready. I won't, because we have the cyberpunk thing. So I'll spend more time on this world than I do on most of my RPG worlds. But that's kind of the basics of my approach. And yeah, what do you guys think? Like, does it sound like an interesting world? Does the process sound like a process you could kind of follow? Did you like the preview of the book? And kind of the um, worksheets and so on, that you will, by the way, like backers of the book, get that worksheet that they can download and obviously fill in and so on in a Word format, so you don't have to write in the book, whether you have it paperback or hardback. So because I was like, yeah. I will absolutely. I might do another live stream on this world, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so I will absolutely give you an update, Gary. And I did share the Google Doc. I will be putting notes and whatnot in there. So if you get really interested or whatever, you're welcome to go look at my notes. I'll try and keep them as sensible as possible. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, it didn't used to be. Before I created this channel, I used to do what I did now, but I used to do it without any templates, without any organizations or whatever. Like the actual process of refining my ideas for the videos and for world building blueprints and so on is what kind of generated this whole process. Thanks, Gary. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Always good to see you guys. Yeah, so I think I'll come up with a cool name for this world in the meantime, and then we'll see how the live stream performs, and maybe I'll run another one, or at the very least provide a community post update or something like that, as I kind of finalize pieces of the world and so on. So yeah, and there will be shadow governments and all the rest of that stuff. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. It was a great break from doing the layouts of the color layouts of the hardback, which is what's consuming my life at the moment. But I hope to have that done by next week, and then the book will be off to the printers very soon after that. So yeah. Cannibalistic thoughts. Cannibalism is a dangerous one, Sid. I'm careful of cannibalism. That's such a taboo in the real world. It's one of those themes I'm always like, how are they going to take it if I'm like, you're going to get cannibalistic thoughts? Actually, Anna, there has been a game, but I can't remember it. Like, there was a game where you kind of build the dungeon as you go. That is actually a cool idea. So I might actually include that cannibalism. I'll see. I'll think about it. I'll play around with it in my head. Are any of the book editions spiral bound? No. There's no. I don't have any current ideas for spiral bound books. I mean, I could, because the printer that I'm doing does do spiral binding, but the book's kind of chunky for a spiral bound book. So they're all you'll get the worksheets as a digital copy, and the book itself is hardback. Um, I'm gonna make a note of that cannibalism thing. That's a cute idea. Cannibal turning to dragon. Okay. Thanks, guys. This has been an incredibly fun stream, and we're gonna have to do it again sometime. And I will see you soon. Have a great weekend. Bye.